All right, the Midweek Howl Thanksgiving special is now recording. So there you go. Are you ready?
Right.
Are you psyched up for another Thanksgiving?
I'm sitting here. I'm drinking some tea and I'm eating some beef jerky, and I can't decide if I'm ever going to be ready. That's why I said you just go ahead and hit record because trying to multitask. You know, my kids want me to be here watching the football game. My wife wants me to watch the football game with them. You know, the dogs want me to pet them and feed them this beef jerky.
Well, you know, in a couple minutes, you'll be able to make everybody happy, right? I mean, just in a couple minutes,
I don't think that's possible, is it?
Well, look, you can make the tens of thousands of listeners happy because you took the time to.
25?
What's that?
How many listeners happy?
Tens of thousands, not 25. There's tens of thousands. There's tens of thousands. And if everybody would share the episode, we'd have hundreds of thousands. You know, it's easy math, right?
Or at least, that's right. Yeah. That's you should work for the government.
Well, I get paid by the government. I don't do a whole lot of work. Okay, I don't do a whole lot
about it.
Yeah, and I am now, and I don't know, we've probably talked about this. I'm officially under 5 years before I can retire. Okay, the clock is counting down, and last week was really cold. I mean, pretty cold. It was in the teens. Wind chill was probably even a little bit less. The packages are starting to pick up again, and I'm just like, I just don't know how many more. I don't know how many more winters I want to be out doing that stuff. And there's a guy I work with. We talked about him. You know, the aforementioned Panty Bandit. Okay, he's got like a year and a half, and I just looked at him the other day, time clock. I said, dude, I don't know how you're so close. I don't know how you do it. And he goes, I got to ignore it. And just get it done because I just got
like being.
What's that?
Or like being in Vietnam and you're short, you don't want to go on any missions. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like
this one might be like
I don't want to say this is our Vietnam, but you know what I'm saying. I don't want to say that.
Well, everybody's got a struggle, right?
Well, I mean, come on. I'm getting paid pretty good to go out and do it. That's the bad thing. But it's like there's just other stuff I you want to do, you know. And
like what?
Well, I mean, doing the podcast takes up a lot of time. I enjoy doing that, and do a lot. I've been doing a ton of writing, music wise, you know, and I'd like to. It's just
song or what kind of writing you been doing?
I've been doing a lot of songs, a lot of co-writes. I could write every day with people from Nashville if I had time. There's that much. Demand would be a terrible term to put out there, but there's enough desperate people that feel like writing with me is they're writing up, I guess, and writing with me is kind of a feather in their cap. I don't know why. It must be because I'm older and they just feel like, well, he must know something, but I could do, you know. And then we do have a special surprise coming. The judge put the finishing touches on how do we want to say it? It's kind of like a graphic novel sort of called Bigfoot versus Yeti. And all our Patreon people are going to get it for free here in the next week. We're going to release it to our Patreon people. They're going to get to read it for free. And then I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a gift to we got some really good Patreon people. So we're going to put it out there and let them download it and they can read it. And then I think we're going to make it available to everybody else for like $3 or something to download it or whatever. But we have talked to some movie people about it, and some movie people are like, okay, so I am starting on the screenplay for that. Yeah, I do have to do that. But it's a kind of an action adventure movie.
Bigfoot versus Yeti is an action movie?
Action. Oh, yeah. It is. I don't want to give it away, but there's some parts in there that you could play, I could play. So there you go. Since we have the movie experience. So So yes, Bigfoot versus Yeti. In fact, it's got some really cool artwork that I believe is going to be available on T-shirts here pretty soon. As well as, I think Nita is we're going to do some T-shirts with some sayings on them from the podcast. And
right.
I can't remember what quote is going to be one of your quotes that's going to be on a T-shirt for people to buy. I'll have to wait until it gets rolled out. It should get rolled out in December, we hope. But it's going to be something that you said in one of the midweek howls. And it's going to be on a T-shirt.
Vote early, vote often.
No.
A little more. I don't know what.
A little more dynamic than that. Okay, I mean a little more dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, that's the problem when you manufacture words like I do. It's hard to remember. It's hard to remember what you said yesterday. What 10 minutes ago?
Oh yeah, exactly. So
it's my curse. It's the cross I bear.
It's the cross. So so you guys getting worked up for Halloween for Thanksgiving or not? I mean, is the kids off?
Yeah. I mean, just the usual. Yeah. Oh yeah. We've got an excellent school system down here. Dr. Yo-Yo runs a tight ship. He's going to give us all week off this week. And so, yeah, I'm going to be hanging out with kids, as a matter of fact, tomorrow. And, I do the in-law thing, just whatever, brother-in-law, just whatever, right? Kids and dogs, maybe a few guns.
Kids and dogs and guns. I mean, look, that might be on a T-shirt. That might right there. Kids and dogs and guns. That's what Thanksgiving is all about. That could be.
Well, I left church off of it because I didn't want to offend the non-believers. So
which I did.
Things.
I just saw a stat. What was that stat? Like back in the early 1900s, 97% of the United States believed in a higher power, whether it was God or whatever. And now it's like in the 70s, 70%.
Well,
so
that's fine. There's more room in heaven for me.
More room in heaven.
Yeah, it's got to be getting crowded by now. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to start talking about starting about the great degradation of society and where this world's going, because it'll just bring me further down today.
Listen, I hate to say this. It's been the go. It isn't any different than it was 200 years ago.
It's going to go down whether I say something or not.
It's the same. It's the same. The society's demise is much overstated, and it isn't any different than it was for the last hundreds of. I mean, if it wasn't, whatever made up problem that's going on now, it'd be something else. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. I don't buy any of that stuff. I don't buy any of that stuff. People, I mean, for crying out loud, it wasn't that long ago we burnt people at the stake for being witches. Okay. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and that's why we don't have any. We think what's the Bigfoot.
So right? You say it'd be a much worse problem with witches if we just hadn't burned them?
Well, the world might be a better place if they would come out of the hiding. Right now, they put on a facade of being nice people, right?
Yeah.
Where back in them days, they would just get on with being a witch, and if they got caught, they got caught. I don't know. Did you see the thing I tweeted at Big T Rich? Is a thing about the cave bears?
No. What about the
saber tooth? Something. I don't know. Anyway, what I started to say was, I put out two things a couple days ago with 185 followers, and failed on both. One of them, there's a podcast I listen to called "There Will Be Bourbon." And, it's this guy talks about whiskey, and he's always got interest. His headline says hold on, I can't get on it right now, but it says he talks to interesting people, right?
Okay.
So I started to tell a story. They were railing on somebody. So I started to tell a story about being on a balcony in a place called the Cat's Meat. A guy was telling a special forces guy was telling a story about being in Las Vegas, or not Las Vegas, in New Orleans at a pseudo fight club. Okay. And he's telling like on the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, he's telling it to a big audience, and some of the people I follow got on there and kind of railed on him because he's an attention hound. And first of all, they're saying, how many basements are in New Orleans?
Not very many, right?
I wouldn't think, they'd call it an aquarium if you had one. So I got on there, and people were saying stuff, about New Orleans or whatever. And I got on there and said because he had a special forces background. I got on there and said I was on a balcony at the Cat's Meow with 2 Navy SEALs, a Green Beret Army Ranger, but I won't tell, and a CIA guy, no kidding. But I won't tell the story to anybody except for the There Will Be Bourbon podcast, right? And I think his podcast has probably got 10% of what the From the Shadows does. You follow him, but he doesn't know me from Adam. And the bottom line is he did not invite me. We had a little exchange, and he did not invite me on his podcast because I'm obviously not interested. Okay.
What? Are you kidding me? Okay. All right. You need a better PR guy. I mean,
you know what I've realized?
Here's what I don't understand. I am on your Twitter thing right now. Somebody asked me how to find you on social media. Okay.
Who does?
Somebody asked me how to find you on social media. Okay. Because they wanted to follow your stuff. And of course, I'm not going to tell them how to find you on Instagram. Okay. But
first of all, my social media print is so small that if you don't know, you're not going to, right?
I know, but you have 2 Twitter accounts, your own personal one, and you have one that says Ozark Howler. How can
yes? Okay,
so if you're listening,
maybe they can't spell
it. If you're listening to the show and you want to follow the Howler on Twitter, it's pretty easy. It's Ozark Howler, and it's at your Ozark Howler. I mean, come on.
Well, so hold on. Now.
I mean, I want to know about this
down here in the country. Hey, I live down here in the country. And some of these guys might not be as tech savvy as you. I mean, they didn't get Division I scholarships. Okay.
Yeah.
So they.
I mean, I'm also delivering mail with that Division I scholarship.
So anyway, back to Big T Rich. So Big T Rich posted this thing. He had a thread on there, and it was interesting about cave bears in the Pleistocene era and all this stuff and saber-tooth things, and basically there might be some wild stuff out there. And have you read about the theory of like DNA imprinting? I got 2 Labrador retrievers, and they
like somewhere in their past, something that happened, it would imprint that.
Like your great grandparents. Your great grandparents,
like my great grandpa knew how to play the banjo, and somehow through DNA imprinting, it might have skipped all these generations, but I might have the inclination to pick up a banjo.
So
and know how to play.
I was going to say the bad me was going to say it's like deep down you think that you feel enslaved because 5 generations your grandparents might have been. The good me was going to say, I went down to Washington County, Missouri this last week for the third time in, I don't know, in 30 years. But I've talked about the history book where I've got a history of my family, part of my family from my dad's grandmother's side, going back to Southeast Missouri in 1820, right? I've told that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So going back to Washington County the last couple of times, well, actually every time, right? It feels like there's places when I drive down there, it feels like I've always been there my whole life, right? It feels like home to me, and I've never spent the night there. That sort of DNA imprinting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And it could be the poor factor because I was at a meeting, and when you talk about how poor some of these places are in South Missouri. I mean, it makes grapes of wrath sound like lifestyles of rich and famous, but that's for a whole nother show. So maybe it was because I was just surrounded by a bunch of poor people, which I grew up with poor people. We was poor, so maybe that's what it is. So back to the saber-tooth tiger and saber-tooth stuff. So, of course, I responded back to Big T's. I retweeted this thing and said, I believe in it because in high school, I went out with, the cave bear, and she was a saber-tooth. She had bad teeth, and they called her cave bear because they had so much junk around that trailer house. It looked like a cave when you walked in. You know what I mean? So I believe in cave bears. But then I got thinking,
wasn't that a book from back in the Clan of the Cave Bear or something? Wasn't that like a miniseries?
No, well, I was thinking 13th Warrior. You ever seen a movie with Antonio Banderas, 13th Warrior?
No.
Oh, no, you're kidding me. You never seen 13th Warrior?
No.
Oh, it's a phenomenal movie, man. It's got Antonio Banderas in it. And he's a Spaniard that gets embedded with some I guess he was a precursor of the Navy SEAL because he was a direct action warrior, a force multiplier, like a Green Beret would be, embedded with the local population, which happened to be Viking Norsemen, and they go out and they're asked to help a village that's being haunted, and what it ends up being is these the opposing peoples, if you will, basically put skinned bear heads on, so when they're on their horses, they look like bears riding the horses, and it freaks out people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great movie called 13th Warrior. But then I got to thinking maybe the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon is DNA imprinting, where your people 1,000 years ago really got ate up by cave bears and stuff, right? So you're believing it because your freaking 20 generation granddad got his head bit off by it. And the last thing he ever saw was maybe his brother getting chewed up.
But
which is why some people are so passionate with
no, but now I'm not a geneticist, but wouldn't that have to be imprinted on your DNA before you procreate it? Like,
now, see, they're using that D1. Now you're using that D1.
You couldn't have your head chewed off.
That's why I changed. That's why I changed it midstream and said you're his brother. Okay. Or maybe I don't know.
Like his brother watched it happen and was shell shocked.
Yeah. Maybe they saw the guy next to him get chewed up. Who knows?
That's interesting. I mean, look, if you're gonna put that theory forward, then you have to be able to probably accept any manner of experience that happened to that person, whether they experienced or witnessed it, that would be imprinted on their memory, and however that gets imprinted into your DNA. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yes, I think
how could you exclude anything?
I don't think you can in some ways, because you would be like a library, if you would, that every life that your ancestors lived was a volume in your subconscious library. Is that getting too deep?
No, I mean, and that might explain, but I think that is kind of an explanation for like people believe in reincarnation or the past lives things, where they know stuff about like a family, and there's no way they can. I think we one of our last couple guests on the paranormal episode, Dennis, I think he talked about that, that very same thing, like knowing that, hey, this is where I used to live 50 years ago, and you're only like 9 years old. You know what I'm saying? And there's Uncle Jeff.
Right.
And how would you know? Well, because I used to live here and hang out and have dinner every Sunday, and there's no way. And what's weird is they say one of the biggest places where that happens is India. Now, why do you suppose that is? I mean, because they do believe in that. I mean, isn't that part of the Hindu kind of religion?
Yeah, they
right?
probably don't. They probably don't suppress it. Like, you God, I don't know if I want to go down there. How many minutes we got recording? Because you'll shut me off midstream on this deal.
God. Shut you off midstream. Oh God, how far left the center are you going?
I can't. I mean, we're in India, so I mean, I've been there. I've been there.
This is the Thanksgiving show. Remember, some people might be, in lieu of watching the Dallas Cowboys or the Detroit Lions on Thursday, they might be playing this as kind of like an after dinner entertainment.
So the only thing I can think of, as far as maybe not, there's several theories, right? So I'm going to tiptoe around this the best I can because I want to keep going. So give me a little leg room here.
I got it. My finger's not on the trigger. Okay, my finger's not on the trigger.
Give me the leg room because I might go.
All right.
Maybe that society doesn't suppress non-realistic thoughts. Meaning, you can't. I know you can go to public school now and espouse to be a boy when you're a girl, or a girl when you're a boy, or all the weird stuff that kids get to say now.
Mm-hmm.
But you really can't go to school and say you believe that your memory or your subconscious stormed the beach at Normandy, or fought at the Battle of Hastings, or you think that you've got something in common with your great granddad that fought with Richard the Lion King, or not the Lion King, but Richard, Lionheart. You know what I'm talking about? Because you will be made fun of, right?
Yeah,
you would be fed. But in India, they believe it, so therefore those kids foster those thoughts more readily, if you will.
Well, yeah, what you're saying is that ironically that something that most everybody at one point thought everything you just talked about, at least here, was just a ridiculous notion. Like, you couldn't possibly be a boy and say you're
okay.
A girl.
Yes. So when I was a child, when we were a child in our relatively rural backgrounds, okay, if you were born with a PP, you couldn't go around and realistically get people to believe you're a girl. Okay, that's just the facts.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, look, we're not like.
I'm not bashing anybody.
Yeah, we're just saying that's how. Yeah, that's how we.
Yeah. Right. And now that they have taken that harness off these kids, maybe that's why more kids think it now than ever, because it has taken the negativity or that displacement of disbelief away from them. Does that make sense? Now, personally, I think it's got to do with the parents, Munchausen syndrome by proxy or something. But I don't want to go down that road either, because you'll unplug me.
Well, okay, in the same sense, even though that's how we grew up, there were still people back then that I went to school with that you knew just because
hold on a second. Yes, and this is where they were special. Okay.
Well, yeah, they were definitely.
Yes, some people are absolutely special. Okay. Unfortunately, everybody else wants to be special too. And what it does is it doesn't necessarily, it waters down the pool. You know what I mean? So now you can't even be a special kind of person because
there's other people that want to be.
Yes, special. It's like stolen valor. It's almost like stolen valor. It's stolen sexuality or something. You know what I mean? It's stolen gender identity, right? So you're some dude that's legitimately born special. Okay. most people that I have been around that have been what I call special, they're usually very, very, very smart, right? And it's almost like their brain is wired different, which is why they get confused sometimes. Or maybe they see avenues that the average person don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you get 5 other kids in the trailer park and they want to be special too. And nobody has the heart to tell them, you ain't special, Jack. That's the way it is.
Yeah,
So
I can see.
now
I
the
see.
special person ain't
Yeah.
special no more because he's got these 5 dipshits saying they are too. You know what I mean? And now we can't hold up the special guy as being special because then everybody gets a trophy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the what we're talking about then too is if so. I have no doubt that there are people who have knowledge or an experience from, and who knows how they got it from, that they should not know that 50 years ago I lived at this place. Now, however they got it, okay, did they really were they reincarnated, or were they, somehow implanted with some kind of information? Um, who knows? But I see what you're saying is there are people genuinely like that. But for every good person there is that's genuine like that, there's 5 other people that just want attention. And
Yeah,
say,
just like whether you're Hollywood being actors or, I mean, how many guitar players, there's only one Billy Gibbons, but everybody wants to be him. Or,
yeah, you can't grow a beard and grab a guitar and say, well, I'm Billy Gibbons. I'm as good as Billy Gibbons. You either are.
You either are, you ain't.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly right. You either are, you ain't. And yeah, but everything's been exploited, right? That now, I mean, YouTube and social media, everybody, when they see one guy be special and maybe you get a few likes or whatever, next thing you know, 15 years ago when YouTube started, there was like 5 people on it, right?
Well, I was watching. Because we got the smart TV. Okay, so we got all the apps on it, and I got turned on to this guy, this Caleb Johnson, I think is his name, who walks around New York City. Hey, can I ask you how much do you pay for your apartment? And 9 out of 10 people seemingly are like, well, this is how much I pay, and then he'll go, can we check out your apartment? And so he's made a whole.
And they let him in
almost every time, because now though.
Well, you only see the ones that let him in. You don't see the ones that run him off. But go ahead.
But here's the thing: is now though, I'm just watching him. He's been around for a couple of years now. Everybody knows who he is. Okay, so now it's like a famous person wanting to come into your house. Whereas a couple of years ago, yeah, you're right. Probably every other person like, dude, I ain't telling you nothing. But he has created a whole new, this is his content.
A whole cottage industry.
Well, but what I turned to Christy and said was, so he was in at these people's apartments, and you'd be surprised how many places he goes into, and the people's line of work is they're YouTubers, and they've got they're YouTubers. That's their job. They sit around, create content, video wise and stuff that goes up on YouTube, and they've monetized it. And I told Christy, I said, I gotta be honest with you. I would rather watch his YouTube channel that is straight and right to the point. There's a couple commercials here and there. I'd rather watch him than watch most of the stuff on HGTV. Okay, because you know what I'm curious. What's your apartment look like in New York City? There's some really cool stuff. You pay. You can't believe people are living in basically a closet for $600, $600 a month, or it's insane. But yeah, it's given the opportunity for people to create content, and there's a lot of people that do that. We're creating content. Our content's going to go up on all these podcatchers. It's going to go up on YouTube. It's going to go, and what gives us the right to have anybody listen? What makes us think that somebody should listen to us? What makes us special? You know what I'm saying? But people seem to like to listen to us, so we keep doing it. We keep doing it and talk about stuff that we think is interesting to people, and we put it up as content. And you can either go listen to Joe Rogan or you can listen to the Ozark Howler, right? I mean,
but are people really listening to Joe Rogan? Or are they listening to his guest?
I don't know. I've only listened to Rogan a couple times because he just goes like I've had some guests on the paranormal side of the podcast that it's gone an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. And that is a huge no-no. Like they'll tell you, don't go over 40, 45 minutes. Like we rarely go over 40, 40. But a lot of times in the paranormal part, we do. And we just leave it. We don't cut it. We don't turn it into 2 episodes because my thought is our fans, they're either going to, most people listen while they're driving or listen while they're exercising or something like that. So you're either going to listen to it all at once, you're going to listen to it 2, 3 different times, whatever. It's not for me to decide, and not everybody likes everything that we put up there. Some people only like Bigfoot. Some people don't want to hear ghosts. They don't want to hear the different, like if I talk to somebody from a movie or something like that, they don't like it. They don't listen. I don't know. Some people love that stuff. Some people give me and you grief because, you don't talk about law enforcement stuff every time, but I mean,
because hey, you know what? I'm going to throw one out. I had somebody, and I'm doing this on my phone, so I can't see who it is to give him a shout out. I don't think I can. I hope I don't screw this up. Dude asked me about a deer picture, a deer story, and whenever it comes time to wrap this up, remind me to tell this deer story.
Well, tell the deer story. Let's hear the deer story.
So he asked me what. Hold on, I'm going to pull it up here to see exactly how he asked it. He hit me up on a direct message on my Howler Twitter.
So somebody that found you on the Howler. Okay.
So he was smart enough, and this is the problem. I'm starting to get people that I know listen because my kids tell people, you know what I mean, and my brother or whatever, you know what I mean. Yeah. So I've really got to watch what I say because, right?
Well, we can talk about them on the Patreon part.
Well, no, it's not just that. It's just I might say some. Now I got to choose my words because.
And Phil Smith, right? I think it's Phil Smith is out there going, "Don't choose your words, Howler. Just say whatever."
Yeah, right. Well, there was a time when I thought I was going to run for school board or something. I thought, my God, they're going to pull all this shit out. And so this dude hits me up. Hold on, I'm going to tell you his handle here. BDD at hey, it's BDD, and I don't know. It says self-proclaimed funny guy living in Eastern Kentucky. Okay, so now I don't know if that's true or not, right? So he says, "Hey, what's the craziest?" He says, "I have a whole show worth of." Can I ask? How do I ask you a question? Let's do it. And I think what he was saying is how he wants. I don't know if he's supposed to hit me up on the podcast or through Facebook or or whatever. So I said, "What's the question?" He said he had a whole show worth of stories, blah blah blah. So maybe we should get him on. It says, for example, what's the craziest location or scenario you have dropped a deer from? So he was hearing about me deer hunting with the kids, I guess, or something, right?
Okay, all right.
So when I was a young trooper, it was my sergeant's story more than mine, and I think maybe I did tell the story. I don't know. So US 54 is 4-lane where I live, but up in northwest Audrain County, Missouri, it's 2-lane. Goes east and west, or goes north and south, east and west. But anyway, it kind of makes some jogs. But in the morning, my FTO picked me up, and we called at me and said, "Hey, come out here! You never seen this." My sergeant was working a wreck where a car going westbound, hit a deer and flipped it up in the air, and it went through the windshield of a eastbound car, so the opposite traffic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was these two old women were driving a Dodge Diplomat. It went through the front windshield and killed them.
No way.
Yes. So it was a double deer fatality. I mean, so
that they didn't even hit. That they didn't even hit.
They didn't hit, but the other car, Missouri traffic law says, traffic manual says, if an object is set in motion by a vehicle, it's considered an extension of that vehicle. So this deer was leaping across the road. You know how they would do on a 2-lane road?
Yeah.
Gets hit, flipped up in the air, and the opposite car hits it, goes through the window. Now, old people don't, as you can imagine, old people don't survive accidents very well because they're kind of frail. But yeah, killed two old women. Mm-hmm. So that's your time to go, huh?
Yeah, that's your time.
That's
your time to go. You're gone. It don't matter.
That's the craziest deer story I got. And then I think what he wanted me to hear is a deer shooting story. But I watched a cop buddy of mine shoot 5 or 6 times. This deer was hit by a car. And back in the 90s, the fun thing to do is go out there, and that's the only time you got to shoot your gun, right? This is back before they shot everybody. Okay? So when I first started being a cop, you chased them down, you fought them, and maybe maced them. You didn't shoot anybody. And then they went through a phase the last few years, as you know, where they shoot everybody. But that's another story. So the only time you got to shoot your gun is with the road hit, a deer hit on the highway. You know what I mean? So, he goes out there, Miss Badass Cop, he's a big weightlifter and big arms and all this stuff. And this poor deer is laying down the ditch with a spotlight in his eyes, right? Because she's mangled up the little doe with her ears forward, trying to figure out what he's doing. Pow, he misses. Pow, he misses. Pow, So, you know what I mean? He's trying to shoot this deer, and he's blaming on the shadow and the lights. And what happens is, the key to shooting a pistol is 2 things: trigger control and sight alignment. But you got to focus on the front sight. People can't do it because in order to do it correctly, your front sight is in focus, but the target is blurry. And people don't like to do that, and they tend to look through it, look over it. That's why most people can't shoot a pistol very well. So finally, after number 6 or 7, we started heckling him. Me and other cops started heckling him, and he went and got a shotgun out and shot this poor little deer in the face. That was a terrible one that I can't ever forget.
Well, before I want to bring up something here about this gentleman. I do remember a deer story that this guy that was on my mail route. He owned this real estate business in town, and he rode a Harley. This guy rode a Harley, and he rode with these people one time out to Sturgis,
Yep,
South Dakota, or whatever.
I've been there.
And he said, so he said he used to ride with this group, and he said this one dude was it's like Grizzly Adams on a Harley, just a great big guy. And I don't know if the guy had played professional football at some time or whatever, like back in the 60s, 70s, This guy I'm talking about was real good friends with John Johnson, who used to be a coach under Woody Hayes at Ohio State and managed Buster Douglas when he beat Mike Tyson. So so they hung out with some, big dudes, okay? Because then John Johnson became a boxing promoter, and but anyway, so he said this guy was on a Harley and had his girl on the back, and they came around this curve, and there was a deer, big buck, standing right in the road, and said this guy just kind of stood up and just expanded himself out. It took the full brunt of that deer, and it killed him, but he did it so that it did not hit the woman he was riding with. So he literally laid down his life right in front of the woman. She's got her arms around him, riding right behind him. That deer just took the guy out and never touched the woman. The bike laid down, and she was okay, and he died. So there you go. How about that one? How about that being? I mean, to have the wherewithal. I mean, I never rid motorcycle.
Maybe he just freaked out and didn't know what to do. He stood up to jump over or something. I don't know.
Those people that were riding with him, they said no, it was obvious what he was doing. That he said he stood up to take the full brunt of that deer. So that's man for you right there. Harley riding, taking it right in the chest for the woman you love. How about that? I can barely get the trash out to the curb for the woman I love. This guy's taking the deer to the chest. But
I think that says a lot about her, not you.
But I'm looking up. So yeah, this dude's name is BDD. It's BDD. Self-proclaimed funny guy living in Eastern Kentucky. Lost my last account to some hack job. Now I'm looking through his tweets. Apparently, sometimes in his spare time, he drives an Uber or a Lyft. So I wonder if he listens to the podcast while he's doing his Uber. Because do you know who always listens to the podcast while he's driving Uber? Is our buddy Stacy Brown down in Florida. As always.
Well.
And Stacy Brown claims, this is what he claims, is that when he plays the Midweek Howl for his riders, the passengers, every single one of them turns into being a fan and ask where they can find the show at and listen to it. So I would love to hear from anybody that's listening that heard about us as a passenger in Stacy Brown's Uber.
We're going to put you on. We're going to put you on the show.
Yeah, I will. Well, for number one, we're going to get BDD here. We're going to reach out to him, and I want to hear some deer hunting stories because
I want to hear some Uber stories. I want to hear some Uber stories.
I do, and I think
I was with a guy last night, and not to muddy the show, but literally here. Okay, I was with a guy last night that was a SWAT cop. If he wasn't so intense, I'd ask him to get on. But he's pretty intense. He was a 12-year active duty Marine, and then he went to work down in Florida, major metropolitan area in Florida. He told me their SWAT team got called out between 240 and 300 times a year is what they averaged.
Oh my God! Once a day?
So he was 2 or 3 times. He had a phone. So he did a challenge coin. If you know what a challenge coin is, that's what we need to do. We need to get a From the Shadows podcast challenge coin. So he challenged me. You know what a challenge coin is?
Like if you win the coin, right? If you win the challenge.
No, so yeah, these military guys, whatever you have these units, they have a challenge coin.
Like if you do the task, you get the coin, right?
Yeah. So like whatever. So that it used to be a big deal, but now you just buy challenge coins, right? You could say, So the thing is, when you pull out your coin, the other guy's got to have his coin, and if he doesn't, he has to buy you a drink. And that's what that dude was trying to get me to do, is trick me into buying him a drink because I didn't have my coin. And he said, I knew you didn't have a coin. And I said, how do you know I didn't have a coin? He goes, because you don't drink. So why would you carry a coin? So anyway, we got talking about other things. And he said, he pulled out his phone. He goes, I know you got some good stuff on your phone. And I guess cop pictures. And I don't, because I have 2 Apple iTunes, the one I used for work with my work iPhone and the one I used personal because I didn't want the government spying on my stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, he pulled out his phone. He started showing me all of this. See, that's the problem when you're in law enforcement for a long time. A lot of these guys can't let it go. Okay. So he still kind of wants to be a cop. He just doesn't want to work the nights and the shift work. And he was just telling me how the political climate has changed where he was at, that he, one wrong move and you're the guy they arrest. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, his phone was full of dead people pictures.
Oh, geez.
Cartel hits and all that stuff. And he goes, hey, you want to see this? And it was from the car, and it's him and a giant black cop. And they're in the projects, and they're approaching a dude like they've been walking around. And they're walking back toward the police car, and the bad guy is between them and the police car. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And this dude's got like some, I don't even think he had shoes on. I think he had socks. but he had just like Adidas shorts and t-shirt, skinny black kid guy. He pulls down his pants and just starts taking, just has very loose stool and just starts cracking right there between these cops and just right there, kind of all over himself. And I said, "What in the hell is that?" He said, "I'll show you again." He said he was shitting his pants, so we didn't arrest him. And I said, "That is the craziest." He said, "No, because sometimes these guys, if you shit your pants, we're not going to arrest you because we don't want to smell it. We don't deal with it, especially if it's a petty crime." So back when they would arrest people, now they don't really arrest people like they used to. He said we had guys that would just they would crap their pants instead of getting arrested.
Well, so I want to apologize for everybody eating that last little bit of turkey gravy and dressing. Well, they just served that. But I thought, so you're saying so really what you're saying is we need to get a From the Shadows podcast challenge coin, give them to Stacy Brown and BDD and everybody they turn on to,
and Big T Rich and there's a few people
and anybody
people. We need to have the top. Can you go back and see who our first?
Oh yeah, but what I'm thinking is Stacy Brown carries around these coins, and everybody that he turns onto the podcast, he gives them a coin, and then
because it costs too much money, dude. We already lose money on this podcast. I think what we need to do, there needs to be two levels.
Well, it could be wooden nickels. I mean, let's be real.
There needs to be two levels, right? We should have one coin. So this SWAT guy told me, he had been, because the locality he was at, President Trump visited a lot. And he said his Pride and Joy challenge going, he had an honestly got a Trump challenge going. He said it's almost as big as the coaster and it's super heavy, and he was proud of that. So I think what we need to do is we need to make a special challenge coin. If you can sort our followers to let's see how many, we'll buy them in bulk or whatever. So our first 50 or first 100 or whatever, they need to be numbered so we can sort through them, and you can say, here, you were the third listener, you were the fifth listener, you were the eighth listener. Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying. It's I think we should just give them to Stacy Brown, have him hand them out. And then when we're at the show,
that's the stuff. Hold on a second. That is the non-collector's item, right? So then when they go into Pawn Stars, if you got number 3 of the original 50, that's worth more than the one they just give to the Uber driver giveaway. Right?
And then anybody that shows up to a show with a challenge coin, that gets a free autograph.
When we're out there at the,
the Monster Fest or the Mothman.
Yeah, what was it? What Bigfoot coin? What Bigfoot thing did we have out in Washington or Seattle or one of them places?
Oh gosh, I don't even know what that is. There's something out there.
I don't know. I thought there was something out there. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so we see. I'm on the website right here. Get your free challenge coin design today.
Oh God. All right. We'll have to look into that. So, brother. Well, okay. So before we jump off here, you got any Thanksgiving wishes? You want to wish everybody anything for Thanksgiving?
Everybody. Everybody. Yeah. Friends and family, in-laws and outlaws, all of them. Just hey.
Yeah. I'm excited. The granddaughters are up from South Carolina. We're going to spend some time with the granddaughters. So I'm excited about that. And, and thankful. I'm thankful that people tune into us every week and listen.
I'm looking. Hey, you know what challenge going to have when I went to pricing.
Oh boy.
Okay, and the first one's called Die Struck, which just means there's no color to it. You know what they have?
What do they have?
They have. It says Burger King on one side, and it's Tampa, Florida Burger King. So some dude that runs a Burger King down in Tampa, Florida, designed and got his own Burger King challenge going, I guess, for his people.
How would that come up in a conversation? Is Bet you never worked at a Burger King. There's my
I
challenge.
don't know. Maybe the Burger King guys go over to McDonald's and flash them. If you ain't got the right coin, you don't get the McFlurry or whatever.
Oh my God. Okay. Fast food challenge coins. I guess I know.
Yeah, hey, they're people too. Fast food workers are people too.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.